Long before the first word was ever spoken, our ancestors already had a way to say something powerful. They laughed, not politely, not quietly, loud, breathless, uncontrollable laughter. And here is the strange part. That laugh you just let out this week is not something humans invented. It is something we inherited. In 2026, researchers at the University of Warwick and the University of Portsmouth, led by Chiara Di Gregorio, recorded laughter from orangutans, gorillas, bonobos, chimpanzees, and human children. They studied one thing closely: the rhythm, the spacing between each burst of sound. What they found was startling. Every single species laughed in the same steady, evenly spaced rhythm. The same pattern you would hear in music, the same pattern you would hear in speech. That meant one thing. This rhythm did not start with us. It started with a common ancestor of all great apes, living around 15 million years ago, long before the Homo sapiens, long before Homo erectus, long before anything we would recognize as human. That ancestor was already laughing, in a shape we would still recognize today. The team recorded 17 individuals across 5 species: 4 orangutans, 2 gorillas, 3 bonobos, 4 chimpanzees, and 4 human children, some as young as 6 months old. They caught the laughter in 2 settings, tickling and social play, then broke each burst down into tiny units of sound and silence. What emerged was a kind of family tree built entirely out of rhythm. The pattern lined up almost perfectly with what scientists already knew from genetics about how closely each species is related to us. Sound does not fossilize. It leaves no bones, no footprints, nothing you can dig out of the ground. But by comparing living species this way, researchers found a way around that problem and used it to look millions of years into the past. There is an older voice in this story too. Comparative psychologist Marina Davila-Ross, who has spent years recording tickle-induced sounds in wild and captive apes, was among the first to argue that these ape vocalizations deserve to be called laughter at all, rather than dismissed as some distant, unrelated noise. Her work helped convince much of the scientific community that when a chimpanzee pants and heaves while being tickled, it is not just making a sound that resembles laughter, it is laughing in the same evolutionary sense that we are. But there is a second chapter to this story, and it belongs to us. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar, at Oxford, studies how animals stay bonded in groups. Most primates bond one-on-one through grooming, picking through each other's fur for hours. It works, but it does not scale. You can only groom so many friends before running out of daylight. Dunbar's research points to a turning point around 2.5 million years ago, right as the genus Homo appears. Group sizes were growing. Grooming alone could not keep up, and laughter, already sitting in our vocal toolkit from millions of years earlier, got repurposed. It became something you could do with a whole group at once, a chorus instead of a one-on-one touch. Laughing together released the same endorphins that grooming did, but it could bond 10 people as easily as one. Picture a small band of early Homo, maybe 15 or 20 of them, gathered at the end of a long day. The fire is low. Someone stumbles over a root in the dark and lets out a startled yelp. Someone else imitates the sound, badly, on purpose. A ripple moves through the group. Shoulders shake. Breath comes out in short, rhythmic bursts. Within seconds, nearly everyone is laughing, even the ones who did not see what happened. Nobody needed to explain the joke. The sound itself was the message. It said, "We are safe here. We are together. You belong." That moment would have happened again and again, night after night, for hundreds of thousands of years, long before anyone strung together a sentence. Now picture the next morning. A hunt goes wrong. Someone slips chasing a wounded animal and lands face first in the mud. There are no words yet for what just happened, no way to say clumsy or embarrassing, or are you okay? But the group does not need words. A few short exhales ripple through them, and the message lands anyway. The mistake is forgiven before it is even discussed. In a world without language, laughter may have been doing quiet, essential work that we now assume belongs entirely to conversation. Here is what makes this stranger than it first sounds. For a long time, scientists assumed language came first, and laughter was just a side effect, something that showed up once humans got clever enough to find things funny. This research flips that order. The rhythm existed millions of years before language. Some researchers now argue laughter may have helped set the stage for speech itself by training the ape brain and body to control breath, timing, and vocal bursts in a deliberate way. In other words, before we could talk to each other, we may have needed to learn how to laugh together first. The type of laughter matters too. Humans do not just have one kind. We have involuntary laughter, the kind that escapes you before you can stop it, and a more controlled social laughter, the kind you use to smooth over an awkward moment or signal that you are friendly. Scientists sometimes split these into two categories: real spontaneous laughter and polite or deliberate laughter. Chimpanzees mostly only have the first kind, the reflex that fires when they are physically tickled or chasing a playmate. Somewhere along the way, our ancestors developed a second, more deliberate version, one they could switch on and off depending on the social situation. A tool, not just a reflex. That shift matters more than it might sound. A reflex you cannot control is honest but limited. It only fires when something genuinely tickles or startles you. A laugh you can choose to produce is something else entirely. It is a social instrument. You can use it to diffuse tension with a rival, to signal you mean no harm to a stranger, or to smooth over an awkward silence around the fire. Some researchers argue that this flexible, on-demand version of laughter was a necessary stepping stone toward voluntary vocal control in general, the same kind of control that speech would eventually require. Think about the last time you were in a group where everyone burst out laughing at once. Maybe it was not even that funny, but for a few seconds, something shifted. The room felt closer. Strangers felt a little less like strangers. That is not a coincidence, and it is not new. It is a 15-million-year-old survival tool, still running quietly in the background of every dinner party, every office meeting, every group chat full of the same three-reaction memes. Even now, conversations without any laughter in them tend to feel tense, or cold, or like something is wrong. We are not imagining that. Casual human conversation is so soaked in this rhythm that its absence stands out immediately, the same way silence stands out in a room that is usually full of noise. Researchers have also found that people can tell the difference between real laughter and fake laughter almost instantly across cultures without ever being taught how. That instinct does not come from watching sitcoms or scrolling through videos online. It comes from something much older, wired in long before any of us learned to speak, read, or type a single word. Every time a stranger's genuine laugh makes you smile without even knowing why. That is 15 million years of shared history quietly doing its job. So the next time you laugh with a room full of people, know this: that sound is older than your language, older than your culture, older than your species. It started as a rhythm in the throat of an ape climbing through trees 15 million years ago, and it became one of the tools that let a handful of early humans, gathered around a dying fire, turn into something bigger. Not by talking, by laughing together, first. If you enjoyed learning how ancient humans really lived, hit subscribe. Stick Age brings you a new story from deep human history every week.